Goeienaand almal. Ons het 'n vraagie gekry van Duifie. Ek ken vir Duifie baie goed. Duifie, jy's welkom. Ons is so bly vir die vraag en ons antwoord graag na die beste van ons vermoë. So ek is glad nie 'n ekspert nie. Dis maar een opinie wat jy kan kry. Ek probeer wel my opinie uit die woord uit kry. So Duifie se vraag is as Adam in die likeness van Elohim gemaak is, hoe is dit dan moontlik dat Adam, wat na God se beeld geskape is, wit, swart, Chinees, Japanees, Indiër, ensovoorts kon voortkom? That bit just doesn't add up. Veral as die gene pool op die stadium so suiwer was. Twee wit ouers, wie se kinders ook kinders voortbring, is almal wit. Anders gaan my nageslag ook op 'n stadium iets anders moet voortbring. Dis Duifie se vraag, dis 'n baie goeie vraag. En ja, ek gaan my bes doen om te antwoord. En julle almal se saamstudie en input is baie welkom. So as ons nou klaar deur die Bybelstudie gewerk het, sal ons net weer hierdie vraag lees en kyk of die antwoord waarop ons gekom het sin maak. So waarmee ek wil begin is net om vir julle te herinner dat in die begin was Adam se DNA perfek gewees. In Adam, enough pure, perfect DNA and genetics for all races and eye colors and hair colors were created. Just like God created in all the animals in the beginning, pure DNA for all breeds in their specific kinds. If Adam was, for instance, white, we just theoretically say white, just for the sake of argument. If he was white, where did the yellow Chinese, the brown Indians, and the black Africans come from? Well, think about it this way. Was there Chihuahuas, Bulldogs, Staffies, Labradors, Huskies, Poodles, Rottweilers, Dobermans, Yorkies? Were all of these dogs in the Garden of Eden? Were all of these dogs in Noah's Ark? Genesis 7 verse 2. Of every clean beast you shall take thee by sevens, the male and the female. And of the beasts that are not clean, you only take two, the male and the female. One male, one female. Of fowls also of the air by seven, the males and the females of the clean fowls. Now listen to these words. To keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. Here we can see that God himself says that 7 pairs of clean animals should be taken, but only 1 pair of unclean animal. This is because the clean animals Noah also used for sacrifice, and we'll see this after he came out of the ark, and then also to eat the clean animals. But of the unclean animals, only 1 pair, because the unclean animals were not eaten or used for sacrifice. In this 1 pair of unclean, and however many pairs of clean animals left after sacrificing, there was enough DNA information for that animal to then multiply after its own kind, just as Genesis 1 says, but also to multiply in various breeds of the same kind. We know today that the ancestors of every single dog, every single kind of dog, came from the original wolf. Not like evolution that says it came from a single cell organism and the next thing you know it starts barking. But in the original wolf pair in the garden, we have interbreeded and done selective gene pool modification. And today we have thousands of kinds of dogs from the same original wolf. See how stunning our Creator built all types of DNA into the garden's wolf? Even a cute, little, short-nosed pug are derived from the original wolf. Does it matter what the wolf looked like? What color his hair was? How long his tail was? No, of course not. Because the genetic code for a short-haired, short-nosed pug was written in the DNA of the wolf from the beginning. The information was in his genes, ready and waiting for a breeder to come and select the DNA to breed a pug. Same with humans. What does it matter what color Adam was? Every nation, tribe, and kind of human comes out of Adam. The genetic information for blue eyes, green eyes, grey eyes, brown eyes, all of that was written on Adam's genes. Skin color, hair color, all nose types, big ears, small pointy ears. It doesn't matter. The original perfect man, before he sinned of course, was created by the Almighty. The Almighty, the super intelligent, super scientific creator, who knew that you and I would come from Adam one day, far down the line. Adam transferred his genes to his sons and daughters. Some of his sons might have inherited the dominant genes for darker skin, and they moved into a certain area and started a family there. Another son might have inherited the genes for lighter skin, and he went into another area and started a family there. Inheriting genes does not mean you look like the genetic code for that gene. For instance, you and your husband might both have blonde hair, yet one of your kids has dark hair. You inherited the genetic code for dark hair, but you only carry it. You don't show it in your own hair, but that genetic code is shown in your offspring. So let's be honest, and I'll be honest with you and open myself up to potentially much criticism. But this whole question about skin color and whether Adam was black or white, or worse even to think about it, was Yeshua black or white? This whole question is very sensitive and difficult, especially for people living in certain countries with certain racial issues and racial tensions, right? I've been rather of a racist all my life. Not in the full-blown racist definition as you get, because I've got many friends of other races when I was in the army, and I've built great relationships with many of my customers from every type of race over the years. But I think my racism stems more out of an abhorrence to a certain culture, a certain way of life, and a way of thinking of certain race groups. To look like a racist, if you don't like the behavior of a certain type of people, and when most of the people that display that specific type of behavior belongs to one specific race group, then one tends to be branded as a racist. I, for instance, cannot stand the arrogance of taxi drivers who break the law on the public roads and put all other road users' life in danger. So, this is many years ago, I've allowed myself to get so angry that eventually I thought I will succeed in teaching them that they cannot break the law on the road. I ended up on Freek Robinson's TV show as the first female who had to go for anger management classes because of road rage. Don't worry, I've learned that I can't teach taxi drivers to keep the law. I've repented and I've worked really hard to not get angry on the road anymore. And now I'm teaching the law to people that actually are interested in the law. Can't teach taxi drivers to keep the law. It's not my job. I'm telling you this so that you can understand, although I'm less a racist and more someone who just don't like the behavior that is prominent in certain races, I'm not trying to push one race in front of another, or of any other race. So in doing this Bible study and trying to show you that enough genetic information was written in Adam's genes, I'm not trying to push a certain race. I hope you hear what I'm saying. But I do believe that we should relax when we think of Adam and all of our forefathers' skin colors, as it might just be a little bit darker than we would have liked it to be. The reason for this is there's more genetic code in the darker colors than in lighter colors. Lighter colors have more color taken out of it, so less colors are left in it. I think I've explained it this way in a Bible study before, so forgive me if you hear it again. But if you mix all the colors of the rainbow together, you get a dark brown paint mixture. Out of that dark brown, you can extrapolate all the individual colors. So if Adam had dark brown hair and dark brown eyes and dark brown skin, you can see, just like out of the original wolf, how green and blue and grey eyes and brown eyes could come out of one human being with a perfect, intricately, intelligently written genetic code. What does it matter is my question. After a few generations, the genetic it's late at night, I'm tired. The multiplication was sorted out. The genetic multiplication was sorted out after a few generations after Adam. And after the Tower of Babel, 70 nations were scattered all over the earth, each in its own area, with its own language, with its own environmental climate and conditions to adapt to, each with its own piece of the original gene pool. Like black bears in America and white bears in the North Pole. Both of them are bears. One is black in a warm climate and one is white in a cooler climate. It's called adaptation, not evolution, just pure adaptation. Yahweh told Abraham from the beginning that all Israel, his seed, will eventually be scattered all over the earth. Israel, the 10 northern tribes, were sent into exile, scattered amongst every nation, tribe, and tongue. They forgot that they were the seed of Abraham. They forgot all about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They lost their cultural identity. They lost their religion. They lost their name. Eventually today, only the house of Judah, the Jews, can be recognized as believers in the original set of instructions of God, the Torah. Although they also have twisted this and follow their own Talmud much more than they follow the Torah. But the point is that only the Jewish people today can really be branded as Torah observant out of all the nations on the earth. And there are almost more black Jews in America and in the north of Africa than there are white Jews. So race is of no relevance. David was a dark reddish brown and Solomon was black, if you read the Song of Solomon's. Acts 10 verse 34 and 35. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, Of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that fears him and works righteousness is accepted by God. Acts 17, 26 to 29. And God made, and listen to this, of one blood all nations. And I think here's the answer. Because how can out of one human being created in the image of God come black, white, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, just like David's question was? And here Paul gives us the answer. God made of one blood all nations. Out of one blood, out of Adam came Seth, and then the rest of the offspring, and Cain and all his offspring, and all the sons and daughters of these people. But originally there was one blood. In Adam, God made that with his own hands. And before Adam sinned, Adam was in the likeness of God. We've discussed this extensively. But in Adam's fallen state, in the sinful nature that he then went into, and he lost the glory of God, and he became aware that he was now naked. In that state, but it's still the same blood. I mean, the blood didn't change. The seed in his heart changed because now he ate from the tree of knowledge, and he had the seed of the serpent inside of him. And that is why an animal had to die. Blood had to be spilled for the forgiveness of his disobedience. But still, the blood that God originally created, the blood with the white blood cells, the red blood cells, the gene pool, the genetic code, all of that was in one person. And out of that one person came every single human being on this earth. Acts 17:26. And God hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. And God has determined the times before appointed, and he has determined the bounds of their habitation on the earth. Beautiful, beautiful verse. And they that seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he is not very far from every one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your poets have said, for we are all his offspring. Verse 29. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, remember, from one blood all nations, out of any nation people that seek him are his offspring. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold, or silver, or stone, graven by art or man's device. Listen carefully. Acts 17:29. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we should not be thinking whether God is gold or silver or stone, graven by art or man's device. Do you understand what Paul says here in verse 29? We ought not to think that the Godhead is brown or black or white or yellow. It does not matter. We are all his offspring. Israel is scattered in all the nations. We all stem from Adam. We all made into various nations out of one blood. But only those with the seed of love and obedience, just like Abraham, the seed of the tree of life in them, and those who listen, Shema, and return to God, only those are called Israel. And remember, God said to Abram, Genesis 22, verse 18, in thy seed shall only Israel be blessed? No, read. All the nations of the earth be blessed. And we know that Israel is scattered all over the earth, into every nation on the earth. By the time of Yeshua, not only was Israel long gone and scattered via the exile from Assyria and then all over the earth, but the Jewish people themselves started amalgamating into other nations and cultures. Acts 2 verse 6, we know this is the Pentecost happening, and Pentecost is just the Greek word for the Hebrew feast of Shavuot. In Acts 2 we see that Jews from all over the area, the Middle Eastern area, came to Jerusalem for the feast of Shavuot. Now in this noise abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak, the disciples, speak in their own language. And this is just a quickly side note. The Ruach HaKodesh, when you are spirit-filled, you speak in an actual language that people can understand. You don't just make weird babblings that nobody understands, but you actually speak in a language. So if God wants to send you to go speak to Chinese people and he gives you the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh, then you're going to speak in the language and they're going to understand you. And that's what happened here at Pentecost. They spoke in a language, not a strange language. They spoke in an earthly language, so that these people that were from all over could each understand in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are all these that speak to us not Galileans? How is it that we hear every man in his own tongue, wherein we were born? Remember now, these are Jewish people coming to celebrate the feast of Shavuot, obedient to the Torah, loving the God of Jerusalem, the city of David, coming to Jerusalem for this feast. And yet they were born not being Hebrew-speaking people, although they were the people of God. Verse 9, Parthians, Medes, Elamites, the dwellers of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, all the parts of Libya, Cyrene, strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes. Proselytes are people that come over from another religion into the Jewish religion or into the biblical religion. From Crete, Arabians, why do we hear them speak in our own tongue the wonderful works of God? Please tell me, what does the people look like that currently live in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Asia, in Mesopotamia? Do you think they looked much different 2,000 years ago? It doesn't matter. If you look at them now, yes, they're quite dark, Middle Eastern people. And that's where Yeshua came from. He was probably dark. Like we discussed the paint colors. Adam was probably dark. It doesn't matter. Because God gave, through the Ruach HaKodesh, to the disciples all the languages of these people, so they can spread the word of God and the salvation through His word that became flesh. The message is still the same today. The disciples are just different. You are His disciple. Maybe you are white. So you would have liked it if He was white. Or maybe you're black. You would have liked it that your God be black. What if you're Chinese? Then surely you don't want to worship a black God or a white God, do you? But like Paul said, we ought not to think what color God is. Let's just obey Him and spread His word. What are we going to do anyway if Yeshua comes back on the clouds and He's dark or He's yellow like a Chinese person? What are we going to do? Does it matter? Will it matter at that stage? Acts 2 verse 39. For the promise is unto you and to your children. Listen to this. And to all that are far off. Far off. And this word, or this phrase, far off, I've done an extensive Bible study in the Old Testament. It's prophesied so many times that Israel, when they are scattered, they will be far off, but they will come near again in the hand of the Messiah. But when they're far off, they are basically, like we discussed before, they would have forgotten that they were originally the people of God. And they scattered far off to the ends of the earth, in every tribe, nation and tongue, forgotten their religion, forgotten the God of Abraham. Revelation 7 verse 9. And after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of every nation, kindred, people, and tongue, stood before the throne, and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, palms in their hands. So when everything is done, and everything is over, this multitude, which I pray and fearfully pray that I'll be part of. And I'm white. I've got black hair. I've got a Jewish nose. I've got a long nose. But I'm a Buddha meisie. But I wish that I will stand here amongst all the other nations, next to a black lady, next to a Chinese lady, next to an Indian lady. I'm going to stand next to them, because a great multitude, which no man could number, of every nation, kindred, people, and tongue, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes. When I get there, where will I go? Will there be customer service so I can knock on the window and say, excuse me, I don't want to stand next to a black person. Or excuse me, I don't want to stand next to a white person. At the end of the day, when all this is over, and we are all made one, echad, as the nation and the people of God, I promise you, color is not going to matter. When we think back at whatever Adam was, it doesn't matter. If Yeshua comes on the clouds and we look upon Him, I promise you, it's not going to matter what color He is. What's going to matter at the end of the day is what color is the letters of the Torah that's written on your heart. And God wrote His instructions on the hearts of people out of every nation, tribe, and tongue. First of all, because Israel is scattered in all these nations. And Israel came out of the seed of Abraham. And God said, in you, Abraham, every nation will be blessed. And like we know, Yeshua said he came from the lost sheep from the house of Israel. And that is for every tribe, nation and tongue. Every human being, that Shema, that returns to God, is part of Israel. And we know that Israel, when they stand on the sea of glass, will be a mixed multitude. Just like there was a mixed multitude in front of the mountain of Sinai when they came out of Egypt. And we know that Israel, the people from the Middle East, Abraham, came out of the Chaldean area, the land of Ur. And today that's in the Middle Eastern area to the east of Israel. And the further east you go from Israel through Palestine, the darker the people get. And the further east you go, eventually the people become yellow, the Asian people. So what did Abram look like? He was most certainly not a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. The white people eventually came out of the tribes that were scattered into the European area, into Europe, where the sun is not so harsh as in the Middle East. And out of the European areas, white people went, after the Dark Ages, the Roman Catholic problems they had, they went to America and they came to South Africa, die Franse Huguenote. But you know what, I just don't have enough knowledge to give you the exact location of every one of the lost tribes. And I promise you, I've listened to hours of people who teach on this. And I want to tell you, when I look in the Bible, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you keep your eyes on the one who created you. And when you look upon him, you're not even going to see a color. And then you're not even going to look around at who's standing next to you. But make sure that he knows you. That we are not going to be like the 10 virgins, of which 5 was told to go away because he didn't know them. That is the most important thing. But the fact that God was clever enough to make enough gene pool information in the beginning in Adam, so that every tribe, nation and tongue can come out of Adam, that I believe, and that I can see from Scripture. And this is the only way that I can answer this question, and I'm really hoping that there is some sort of answer in. And if not, then it's fine. Then, we continue searching together. And we move past this. If this is a question that we can't answer immediately to the satisfaction of everybody, let's just move on. And maybe better answers will come later. Or maybe no answer will come later. But the Word stays the truth, and we are looking at the truth and the Word. And if we don't understand genetics, then it's fine. Let's just make sure that we understand the Torah. So, just to go back to Davy's question, 2 wit ouers wie se kinders ook kinders voortbring is almal wit. Anders gaan my nageslag op 'n stadium iets anders moet voortbring. If I look at the genetics that we discussed, the pure genetics of Adam in the beginning, and after a few generations, the genetic pool was distributed all over the earth. And after that, there was no more genetic variations. The nations and the tribes were settled. And the genetic pool division was made and it was done. And after that, the whiter races sort of lived together, and the darker races sort of lived together, and the Indian races eventually went to India, and the Asian races ended up in the east of the earth. So after that, after the genetic multiplication ended, now we just keep on multiplying in our own likeness. So my kids, if they continue marrying other white kids, will continue bringing forth white children. Only when they marry out of their race will their children look different. Because we only have enough genetic information inside of us to bring forth people that looks like us, because we've got limited genetic information. We are not like Adam, who had all the genetic information. So out of us can only come what is inside of us. So out of us can never come another race, because we don't have the genetic information for another race. But Adam did have that. But it was distributed. So black people only have genetic information for black people that can only bring forth black people. And the same with us. So I don't think, like you ask here, two white parents can have only white children and eventually something else comes out of them. I don't think that's possible at all anymore. We are so far down the line from Adam. The genetic codes has been spread all over the earth, and now we just multiply according to what the genetic information is that we have. Well, guys, I wish you a fitful night's rest ahead, and may you be blessed until we meet again over the airwaves.